Hi, it's Maria from Still Dreaming Homestead. Glad to be back with you. Have a Bible story for you tonight. Now, I just read it from the scriptures, the Holy Bible, which I'm holding right here. And I'm going to tell you the story. So, there are no pictures, but I know you have good imaginations and you can picture this. Well, a long, long time ago, there lived a man named Jonah. Jonah loved the Lord, and he was a special man that we call a prophet. That means God spoke to him and told him things that he was to share with others. Well, one day, God told Jonah, I need you to go to the city of Nineveh. I've got word how evil they are, and I have something I want you to tell them. Well, Jonah did not like that idea at all. He didn't want to go. So you know what he did? He thought, I've got to get away from God. And he took off the other way. Well, he traveled to a town called Joppa. And from Joppa, he knew, because that was by the ocean, that he could catch a ship. And he would go to another area called Tarshish. Now, he paid his money and he got in the ship and he went down below deck in the very bottom of it and he laid down, and you know what he did? He fell asleep. While he was asleep, God was not happy with him at all, and he knew he had to get Jonah's attention. So you know what he did? He blew very hard in the ocean, and a big storm came on that ocean. It was such a big storm that all those sailors, they were used to storms, you know, they were very afraid that their ship was going to be sunk. So they began doing two things. The first thing that they did was they began to throw their cargo off. Now, cargo is how they made their money, taking things for people from one place to another, and they just began throwing that off. So they were going to be in trouble for that, of course. But if they did that, that could lighten the ship. It would rise a little higher in the water, and maybe they wouldn't sink. The second thing they did was they prayed to their gods. Now that's with a lowercase g, not a capital G. That's because they were not praying to the one true God in heaven. They were praying to idols. And can idols which are made of stone or wood, can they do anything? If you talk to a rock, can it help you? No. How about to a tree? Nope, that can't help you either. Well, they were praying to their gods that were not real, and that wasn't helping at all. So the captain of the ship, he went down into the belly of the ship, and guess what he found? Jonah. Yep, Jonah was asleep, just like nothing was happening. And the captain yelled at him, "Wake up, you sleeping person! What is the matter with you? Don't you know we're about to sink? Get up and pray to your God. Maybe he will save us and keep us from sinking." Well, Jonah got up and he went out on deck, which means he climbed some stairs, went out where he could see all that terrible waves and stuff and see all the sailors very scared. And the sailors, they asked him, "Where are you from? And what did you do to cause such a terrible storm as this?" Because they somehow knew it was him. I'm going to tell you how that way is. He told them he was a Hebrew and that he was a believer in the one true God that made dry land and the waters. And then he told them how God had wanted him to go to Nineveh, but he was running away from God. He said, and they said, "What can we do than to be saved, since you are the reason this is happening. He said, well, I guess the only thing you can do is throw me in the ocean, and then I'm sure that the storm will stop. They didn't really want to throw him in this ocean. They weren't terrible people. So they began rowing their ship as hard as they could, because they didn't have motors back then. They had to row them because they wanted to get to shore, but it was not working at all. They were not getting any closer to land. And so Jonah told him again, the only thing you can do is throw me into the ocean. So they prayed to the one true God this time, and they said, you sent this storm because of this man. So don't hold us accountable for his blood. That means when he dies, when we throw him into the ocean, because we didn't bring him here knowing what he had done. So then they picked up Jonah and they threw him into the ocean. And when he splashed into that ocean, the waves became flat and the wind stopped. At the same time, the Lord sent a giant fish, and that giant fish began swimming towards Jonah. Well, the sailors, they were so relieved and happy that they were still alive. They began thanking the true God with a capital G, and they even offered a sacrifice to him. But Jonah, he was sinking deeper and deeper in the water, and seaweed was wrapping around his head and everything. And then the fish saw him, and he opened his mouth very big and swallowed him. But he didn't chew him up or anything, so Jonah was still alive in the belly of that big fish. And he stayed alive for 3 days. That's like, when you wake up in the morning and you're awake all day and then it's night, that's 1 day. And then you wake up the next morning and then you're up all day and it's night, that's 2 days. And when you wake up in the morning and you're up all day and then it's night, that's 3 days. That's how long he was in the belly of that whale. And you know what he was doing during that time? He was praying to God. And he told him how he had ran away. He told him how when he was thrown into the waters, he was sinking down into the pit almost like a grave. And that the seaweed had wrapped around his head, but he wanted to see God's temple again. He wanted to worship him again. And that suddenly something had came and like closed bars. I think that was the shark's, or I'm not saying it was shark, the fish's teeth when they closed down. That kept him in there. And he said, I want to see Jerusalem again. I want to go to the temple. I'll do what you say. And so the Lord relented. That means he said, okay. And he had that fish go near shore, and then, this sounds kind of gross, but it was also good, then the fish vomited, which means puked. Jonah right out onto the shore, and he laid there. I bet he had fish goo and seaweed on him, but he was alive. And you know what he did? He headed straight to Nineveh after I think he washed up. And when he got to Nineveh, it was a big city. It took 3 whole days to walk across that city. After he'd walked across one day, he began telling the people, in 40 days, Nineveh is going to be taken over. Whew. People believed him. They knew he was a prophet of God. And they began praying. Well, the king of Nineveh also heard that, and he made a special law, and he said, nobody and no animals, no big animals, little animals like flocks of chickens, none of them are to eat or drink anything, but just to pray for God to give us another chance. Well, the people did that because it was the law, and they didn't want to be taken over by an enemy. And they prayed, and you know what? God was good because he's so good. He gives us a second chance, sometimes a third chance too. And he decided, I will not destroy the city. And that's what he did. He did not destroy that city. He had mercy on them. And that's something you and I should have on others. If they've done something wrong, yes, we might have to talk to them about it, or maybe have a grown-up talk to them about it. But then we can forgive people. And we should. Now, I want to tell you some more. Jonah wasn't happy about that either. He was mad. He says, oh, I just want to die. I knew this was going to happen. I knew that you were such a kind and forgiving God, that you would forgive them. And now, it looks like everything I said was wrong, so I just wish I was dead. Why don't you just kill me, God? And he went out of the city, and he built a little shelter, and he sat under that to watch the city to see if God would destroy it. Well, that's a hot land. And just a second. I'll call you right back. It's a hot land. And God, in his mercy, he decided to plant a little seed that would grow up overnight. It was a miracle. And it shaded that little booth so that it wasn't so hot for Jonah under there. So Jonah was really glad to have that extra shade. But the next night when it came up, that plant withered and died. And it was hot. It was so hot. Jonah says, it's better if I'm dead than to live like this. And God talked to him and he said, so you're upset that that little plant, big plant, that came up overnight without you doing anything and gave you that nice shade, you're upset that it's dead? He says, I sure am. And God said, well, so you wish that it hadn't died. He says, that's right. God says, that's how I feel about the city of Nineveh and all those people that live there. I am so glad that they repented, which means turned away from their wicked ways, and they called to me so they wouldn't be taken over and destroyed. Well, that's the end of the story of Jonah. And I hope you've learned some things, like God gives us second chances, but we need to turn to him, ask for forgiveness. Sometimes we have to ask other people for forgiveness too. And that God loves us and finds us valuable. He wants us to live, just like he wanted the people in the city of Nineveh to live. All right, it's Maria from Still Dreaming Homestead. I want to pray blessings on you and yours, in your house and out of your house, In the day and in the night, whatever you do, keep dreaming. Good night. If you haven't subscribed yet to this channel, please consider subscribing. And the best way you can help my channel to grow so that more people will get to hear these stories about God is to share my videos on your social media. All right. Thank you so much, and I'll be back tomorrow.